When you travel, you always remember to check your ticket. You double-check your passport. You stare at the departure board again and again. But here's something almost no one ever thinks about. Have you ever wondered whether the airport you're sitting in might be haunted? Airports are meant to feel safe. They're modern, brightly lit, crowded with people, and designed to make everything feel efficient and controlled. Those stories feel completely out of place in a location like that. And yet, there are airports around the world where the number of paranormal reports became so disturbing that management quietly made changes, hoping it would reduce what people were seeing. Tonight on SK Horror, we're stepping into one of the most unsettling locations of all, Hong Kong International Airport. A place consistently ranked among the best airports in the world, and yet whispered about as being haunted by a woman in red and a child who never stops waiting. Officially, the airport has never acknowledged a single ghost sighting. That's understandable. An international airport cannot afford to be associated with fear, curses, or unexplained deaths. Admitting to paranormal activity could damage its reputation and scare travelers away. But among staff, pilots, flight attendants, cleaners, and security guards, the stories never stopped. They were passed quietly from one worker to another, never written down, never spoken about publicly. One of the most famous incidents was shared by a former flight attendant. For privacy, we'll call her Shirley. At the time, Shirley had already been working international flights for years. She'd experienced strange moments before, but nothing compared to what happened that night. It was just after 11 p.m. when she arrived at the terminal for a red-eye flight. The airport was calm, glowing under artificial lights as she rolled her suitcase toward the entrance. Before passing through security, she decided to use the restroom, something she did routinely. Standing outside the women's restroom was a small boy, around 7 or 8 years old, dressed entirely in red. He stood perfectly still, facing the restroom door, as if waiting for someone. At first, nothing seemed strange. Shirley assumed his mother was inside and walked past him into the restroom. About 10 minutes later, she came back out. The boy was still there, standing in the exact same spot, in the same posture. This time, she noticed his skin looked unnaturally pale. His lips had almost no color. Feeling concerned, Shirley approached him and gently asked why he was standing there alone. The boy looked up at her and said quietly that he was waiting for his mommy. She had gone inside, but she hadn't come out yet. Trying to help, Shirley told him to stay where he was and went back into the restroom. She politely called out, asking if a child's mother was inside because her son had been waiting for a long time. There was no response. She checked each stall one by one. All were empty. At the final stall, the door resisted slightly, as if someone was holding it shut. Shirley apologized, assuming someone was inside. There was only silence. When she tried again, the door opened easily. The stall was completely empty. Confused, she turned back toward the sinks. That's when she saw her. A woman with long black hair, wearing a red dress, standing in front of the mirror, slowly brushing her hair. Shirley froze. She hadn't heard anyone enter, and to reach the sinks, the woman would have had to pass directly by her. That hadn't happened. Then Shirley noticed something that made her blood run cold. The woman had no legs. Where the red dress ended, there was nothing beneath it. Shirley tried to scream, but no sound came out. The lights flickered. The woman stopped brushing her hair and smiled, stiff and unnatural, through the mirror. Then, as if she weighed nothing, she drifted past Shirley and out of the restroom. The lights instantly returned to normal. Shirley ran outside in panic. The boy in red was gone. When she told her co-workers what had happened, the story spread quickly through the airport. It eventually reached upper management. Security footage was reportedly reviewed, and according to those who saw it, the cameras captured Shirley speaking to the boy, re-entering the restroom, and then a semi-transparent woman in red drifting out, followed by the child, both slowly fading away. Not long after this incident, something subtle changed. When the airport first opened, women's restroom signs were red and men's were blue. Quietly, almost without notice, the red signs were replaced. Most restroom signs became blue. Many believe this was done because the boy kept waiting outside women's restrooms, confusing the red signage with the image of his mother in a red dress. After the change, sightings became less frequent, but they never fully stopped. There was another incident involving a pilot. One night, as a plane was taxiing into position, the pilot suddenly stopped the aircraft, ignoring ground crew signals. For nearly 10 minutes, the plane refused to move. When the pilot disembarked, he angrily confronted the crew, demanding to know why civilians were allowed on the runway. He claimed he saw a woman in red and a small boy standing beside her, waving at him. The ground crew insisted no one was there. The pilot stormed off. 1 week later, he died in a traffic accident on his way to work. Stories like this continued to surface across the airport, in restrooms, terminals, security zones, and even on the tarmac. The woman and child were not the only spirits people reported seeing. So why would a modern airport, completed in 1998, be so heavily haunted? Some believe the land itself was disturbed. Before construction, old graves were relocated without proper rituals. Others say the coastline was once a place where many immigrants drowned before reaching shore. During construction, numerous workers reportedly died in accidents, some allegedly undocumented, their deaths quietly erased. One legend claims that a construction worker's wife and young son visited him at the site every night, bringing him dinner. An industrial accident later killed them both. Since then, the woman and child, always dressed in red, are said to wander the airport together. Before we end, there's one final story shared by another flight attendant. We'll call her Jane. On a long-haul flight returning to Hong Kong, Jane noticed an elderly woman sitting alone near the crew rest stairs. The woman appeared confused and said she didn't remember where she was. Jane tried to help her find her seat, but her name wasn't on the passenger list. The woman said she was traveling with her husband. Jane located him near the back of the plane and gently woke him. What he said stopped her cold. He explained that his wife was on the flight, but not in his seat. She had passed away overseas, and her body was being transported home in storage. Jane rushed back to the stairs. The old woman was gone. In Chinese belief, when someone dies far from home, their spirit may travel with their body until they return. Airplanes, suspended between lands, are considered liminal spaces, places where encounters between worlds are more likely. This wasn't a story of fear. It was a story of love. Thank you for watching SK Horror. If stories like this disturb you, then you're exactly where you belong. Until next time, safe travels.